Hey guys, after some thinking, I've decided to use my real voice and not a voiceover. Voiceovers frankly suck, and I'd much rather just edit my voice in at this point, even if it doesn't sound great. Anyways, back to it. With how comfortable life is now, I don't think we really consider how rough it used to be. Now we get up from our warm, insulated beds, go downstairs all groggy, and start brewing some coffee in our heated homes. But for hundreds and hundreds of years, it wasn't like that at all. 13th century France. The first rays of sunrise find most villagers already on their feet. Jean, a peasant farmer living in the shadow of a local lord's manor, rises with a stiff back on a straw mattress. He shares a cramped, single-room cottage with his wife, 3 children, and a few chickens they keep indoors for warmth. The structure's roof is thatched. Smoky residue stains the rafters from the central hearth that smolders through the night. Jean pulls on his woolen tunic, hand-woven, coarse to the touch, ties a simple rope belt, and slips into sturdy leather shoes, reinforced with scraps of hide. Clothing choices are limited. Linen is prized, but expensive, so undergarments are minimal. Outside, the crisp morning air is laced with the smell of damp earth and wood smoke from neighboring huts. Before anything else, Jean must stoke the hearth fire for warmth and prepare a basic meal. His wife, Marie, tends to an oat or barley pottage simmered overnight. If they are fortunate, they'll have coarse bread made from rye or maslin, a wheat rye blend, left over from the week's baking in the communal oven. Butter or cheese is reserved for special occasions, but sometimes there's a little to spread. Once breakfast is done, Jean heads out. The Lord's domain lands require labor, plowing, sowing, or harvesting, depending on the season. He often spends 3 or 4 days a week working these fields without direct compensation, as it's required under feudal obligations. The soil is heavy in some parts, and the wooden plow occasionally breaks against hidden stones. Oxen pull the plow at a slow, steady pace, while Jean guides them with short, firm commands. If it's harvest season, he'll swing a sickle or scythe from dawn to dusk, gathering and bundling sheaves of wheat or barley. Around noon, Jean might pause for a brief rest. If the weather is good, he'll sit on the edge of the field, wiping sweat from his brow with a rough linen cloth. He'll eat a simple midday meal, often the same pottage from morning or a thin soup with peas or beans. Sometimes salted fish or a small portion of salted pork brightens the otherwise meager bowl. Water is dipped straight from a nearby well, though ale is common if the region can spare enough barley. Meanwhile, the local bailiff may arrive to inspect the labor, ensuring peasants fulfill their corvée duties. Taxes or dues, sometimes paid in grain, eggs, or labor, are meticulously tracked. If harvest yields are poor, the tension is palpable. Jean knows the Lord has every right to demand what's owed, regardless of the family's hardship. Rebellion or noncompliance is a dangerous path that can lead to fines, physical punishment, or worse. On certain days, Jean travels to the nearest market town. This trip can take several hours on foot if the farm is remote. Dirt roads traverse open fields and pockets of forest where bandits occasionally prowl. Holding a small basket of surplus eggs or a few sacks of grain to trade, Jean hopes to secure items his family can't produce themselves: salt, metal tools, or bits of cloth. In the market, the stench of animal pens mingles with the aroma of fresh bread. Merchants holler out prices. The local baker sells loaves, while a blacksmith might display iron nails or horseshoes. Embraye. Town crier might bellow decrees from the lord or the king, referencing wars or new taxes. Every so often, the watchful eyes of a church official linger, ensuring no unchristian dealings occur. After bartering, John hurries home, mindful of daylight. Traveling after dark risks encounters with highwaymen or wolves. Back in the village, as the sun sinks below the distant hills, bells from the local church, a simple stone structure, signal vespers. Most peasants, Jean included, are expected to attend regular masses. Although devout, he sometimes resents the mandatory tithes, 10% of produce or goods, directed to support the clergy and the upkeep of the church. Yet refusing to pay is out of the question. Faith weaves into every aspect of community life, and noncompliance can invite accusations of heresy or moral failing. After Vespers, families gather in modest huts. Dinner might be a repetition of pottage. perhaps thickened with extra vegetables if the harvest allows. Once inside, Jean's children huddle near the hearth's dim glow. The family retells local gossip: who's sick, who's pregnant, which taxes loom. The flicker of the fire brings fleeting warmth, but the air is damp, and cold drafts seep through cracks in the walls. Sicknesses like fevers or dysentery lurk, and medicine beyond herbal remedies is scarce. Darkness in medieval France is a realm of limited possibilities. Candlelight is expensive. Many rely on a small oil lamp or the hearth's embers. Night watchmen might patrol the Lord's manor or larger towns, but most peasants stay indoors. Stepping outside risks robbers or straying wolves. If an urgent errand compels travel at night, a lantern and sturdy walking staff provide minimal comfort. Superstitions run deep, warning of wandering spirits or ill omens. Even if one doesn't truly believe in the supernatural, the pitch-black emptiness of the countryside can unnerve the bravest soul. Jean's family retires early, retreating to the straw bedding. He dozes off, half worried about the next day's tasks and whether the weather will cooperate. Harvest times might yield enough grain to stave off hunger until next spring, but a storm or a plague on livestock can derail everything. Survival is precarious, tethered to the land, the Lord's demands, and the often harsh will of nature. For Jean, each day mirrors the last, an unending cycle of labor, feudal dues, family obligations, and devout observance of church rituals. Life expectancy hovers around 30 to 40 years for most peasants, though some manage to see old age. Illness, accidents in the fields, or conflict can abruptly halt these daily routines. Yet despite the hardships, Jean clings to the security that his plot of land and the village community provide. In an uncertain medieval world, that sense of place and any fragment of stability can be more precious than gold.